All right, everyone, welcome to the July public meeting of the Southampton Village Planning Board. If everybody could silence their cell phones, it would be great. Other than that, if I could have a motion to open the meeting, I'd appreciate it.
So moved.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
First item on the agenda is an extension request from Paul and Joan Robinson at 105 Little Plains Road.
Mr. Chairman, I have reviewed the proposed covenants and declaration that was to be drafted by applicant's attorney and approved by village council and then recorded. That document I've given written instructions is acceptable. So really there's no further work on this, and if you just maybe want to have a confirmatory resolution that the chairman is authorized to sign the Mylars, that would be fine.
So there's no need for an extension?
Correct.
Okay.
So resolve that,
A motion that the chairman be authorized.
resolve that the village attorney has accepted the proposed declaration and the chairman is authorized to sign the Mylars on behalf of the planning board.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, I have the Mylars here, and we'll sign them forthwith.
And these are for our files.
Second item on the agenda is the application of Beechwood Latch 101 and 109 Hill Street.
For the applicant, David Gilmont, engineer, Farrell Fritz. As the board discussed at the work session, you're going to adopt a resolution today that one, designate yourself as lead agency, adopt a POS deck on the application, and then schedule a scoping session for the next hearing date of the board. My understanding is Mr. Clear is going to prepare that resolution for you.
Correct.
We have Gail Pesner of VHB here and Stephen Dubb, if you have any questions. Try to answer them. Pretty straightforward.
Mr. Cleary, our consultant, has prepared with the scoping document, and the Village of Southampton Planning Board is the lead agency for the SEQA review of this proposed village latch residences. In order to ensure that all potentially significant adverse environmental impacts are identified and adequately evaluated, the Planning Board has issued a positive declaration requiring the preparation of a draft environmental impact statement and has elected to conduct public scoping to get public input for the for the DEIS. The purpose of the scoping document is to initially define environmental issues that will be addressed by the project sponsor during the preparation of a DEIS, and a methodology that will be used to study the potential impacts of the action on the environment. This scoping document has been prepared in accordance with 6 NYCRR paragraph 617, period 8, and sets forth the following. It describes the proposed action. It describes potentially significant adverse impacts, the extent and quality of information needed to adequately address each impact, the initial identification of mitigation measures, and reasonable alternatives. At the following Village Planning Board meeting in August, a public scoping session will be held to get input from members of the public into this document. Additional written comments from members of the public will be received depending on level of interest that we receive at the first public scoping session for a set period of time after the close of the public scoping session. Once that's done, this agency will consider all comments received and prepare a final scoping document which will be adopted by the Planning Board. The final scoping document is intended to serve as the foundation for the identification of all potentially significant adverse impacts pertinent to the proposed action and to recommend any appropriate mitigation measures. Its purpose is also intended to eliminate consideration of any potential impacts that are irrelevant or insignificant. So that's what's going to happen a week from now. The document's in the file.
A month from now.
A month from now, sorry. At this point, does any of the board members have questions for Mr. Gilmartin? Or
I've read all the stuff and.
Well, you have the
waiting
written
for
resolution prepared
going
by
forward.
I do.
Patrick, okay, so you'll be voting on that?
Yeah. So at this point, could I have a motion to adopt the resolution confirming lead agency and positive declaration of the environmental impact? Is that what I'm-
Correct, and setting August 8th as the date of the first scope session.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I get a copy of them?
I'm sure I can get another one, so how much?
Thank you.
That is the scoping document. Do you want the resolution?
Yes. Thank you.
The first Monday is August 1st.
That makes sense.
Okay.
The next one is August 8th, so it's August 1st.
August 1st.
First.
Thank you.
Does the resolution have it as the 8th?
No.
No, it's blanked.
Oh. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That's adjourned.
Right. We adjourned that at the meeting.
So the public hearings for this evening, Southampton Real Estate Partners LLC at 85 and 95 Down East Lane.
Then this is. So.
Kathy, you have a memorandum regarding this application in the file. Do you want to summarize it?
Yeah, I can do that. There, this application is for a two-lot subdivision. This is two separate Suffolk County tax map parcels that were zoned R80, but when the property changed hands, it is now zoned R120, so when the property changed hands, they automatically got merged as far as the village code is concerned. Suffolk County still recognizes these as two separate tax lots. However, the application will transfer some of the land in one of the lots, and it's a different configuration. There are some concerns with respect to the development of an additional house on this property, which were pretty well fleshed out when we had our sketch plan review, including nitrogen loading to Hetty Creek, which is a New York State listed impaired water body. And there has been some mitigation proposed, including an extensive replanting plan with native plants that will remove the fertilizer-dependent vegetation on the property, pretty much all of it. And there are other concerns with respect to the building envelope for Lot 2. It's rather small, and there has been some discussion about adding some restrictions in the approval that would limit the amount of zoning relief that could be sought in the future if they were to ask for additional room for accessory structures and so forth. And the applicant has agreed as a condition for rear yard and side yard. However, they want to have some flexibility with the front yard because of the wetland setbacks that they'll be required to maintain. Since sketch plan approval, they've gone to the DEC, they've gotten a tidal wetlands approval, and they've gone to health department and gotten real property subdivision approval. And one last thing, there's a drainage easement on the property at this point that they've filed a drainage easement, what's the word? Distinguish? They're going to distinguish that easement agreement. And the village has agreed to that on condition that they add some drainage in the roadway at their expense. And so once that is installed and the building inspector signs off, it will, the easement will be gone. So that's about it.
Mary Jane Asado, Burke Flannery Asado, 21 South Main Street for the applicant. That was a recap, as I understood it, that during the work session and the various meetings that were had, that it was agreed that no relief other than front yard relief would be, that there's going to be a covenant and declaration to that effect, since the latitude that may be required in connection with the wetland setback, and that no wetland setback variances would be requested as a result. So. unless you have something
Does
further.
anyone have any questions? I'd like to then allow any member of the public to address the board.
Good evening, Evelyn Conrad, 18 South Roscoe Drive. This is the second time that this subdivision has come before you. The first time in 2009 and 2010, they still exist, 233 signatures by neighbors opposing this subdivision for a variety of reasons, one of them being the fact that it will have a horrible impact on traffic. This is very close to the hospital, as I recall. I didn't know this was on tonight, so I'm speaking impromptu. That's why I don't have the 233 signatures here to show you.
I think you might be, are you talking, this is Hetty Creek, this is on the opposite end of the village from the hospital?
No, this is the Plains, Little Plains, is it not? Am I
No,
on
no.
the wrong one?
You're on the wrong one.
I'm so sorry. You'll hear from me again. Forgive me. I'm sorry.
The Hetty Creek.
Okay.
Totally misunderstood.
Does anybody else have anything to do with 85 and 95 Down East Lane? No. Okay, then I would request a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
What is the status then of the Robinson subdivision?
It's been approved
When was that approved?
months ago.
This was not a, this was,
Well, it's not on our agenda now.
not on our agenda, and it
It's
wasn't
on the
approved this
agenda.
evening, it was approved.
It's for signing of the Mylars.
It's for the signing of the Mylars and the approval of the declaration by, confirmation of approval by the village attorney
When was that?
last week.
Last week, in the work session?
No,
Not public.
no, it's not, when I approve it, it's not a question of the work session. This was last heard in June, subject to my approval, which is any time that Mr. Flanagan submits the documents and I have a chance to review them.
Okay.
Next public hearing is M&M East Corporation, 276 North Main Street. There's a letter in the file from Mr. Foster, the building inspector of the village, regarding a berm that has been constructed on the property and also some storage of debris. And Kathy, Mr. Foster's recommendation is that we do not act upon this application until the situation is remedied.
Right, and actually, one of the requirements for a subdivision map is to show the topography on it, and since the topography has been altered, they need to go back up there and survey it to show the updated topography.
Is the applicant here?
Mary Jane Asado, Burke Flanagan Asado, 21 South Main Street for the applicant. When I reviewed this with Gil on Friday, since I'm covering for the we were not aware of this letter, but obviously it has to be addressed. So if the hearing could be held open for all purposes, so we can address this matter and come back for the board.
Make a motion to approve the request of the
Wait a
applicant.
second.
I'm sorry.
I would just ask if anybody's here from the public to speak on it as well, just so they don't have to come back.
Does anyone in the public wish to comment at this time on this application? No.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion to hold the public hearing open.
Motion to approve the request of the applicant to hold open the M&M East 276 North Main Street public hearing to the next meeting of August 1st.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next public hearing is Donahue and Silvitz at 42 and 32 Post Crossing.
Good evening, board members. Wayne Bruin, O'Shea, Marcinsick and Bruin for Mrs. Donahue and the Silvitz family. We're here tonight for public hearing on the transfer of property between the two existing lots on this southerly side of Post Crossing. The two street addresses are 32 and 40, I believe it's 42.
42.
Post Crossing. The existing Silvitz lot is a flag lot that contains a two-story single-family dwelling. The lot is 28,489 square feet. Donahue Building contains a 2.5-story house which fronts on Post Crossing, and that lot is an extended lot that extends into the back and contains 34,000. As you know, the lots along Post Crossing are all rather small, and so there's not going to be any change in the frontage on Post Crossing, but the rear portion is proposed to be transferred from the Donahue lot to the Silvitz lot, thus increasing the Donahue lot, decreasing the Donahue lot to 13,519, which is approximately 45% greater than the minimum lot size of the 7.5 R7.5 zone. And the Silvitz lot will increase in size to 49,427. We did receive a staff report from Nelson Pope in May. We believe at that time there was a question about the lot coverage and minimum floor area. We provided this board with those calculations, and actually, as a result, we did change the lot configuration to increase the Donahue lot to a point of 13,519, so that it will comply with all the lot coverage and floor area requirements. And at the last meeting, at the work session actually last week, the board asked a question whether or not the parties would consider restricting the future development of the Donahue lot, and essentially received from both parties their agreement in principle, provided we get to see the exact language that can be reviewed by both attorneys. So unless there's any questions.
Is there any public comment on this application? I would suggest we close the public hearing.
Just ask Wayne one question.
Sure.
So we're taking this parcel A, sticking it onto the other parcel, and you're creating a conforming lot,
They're both conforming.
right?
Leaving the
You're leaving a conforming lot,
Yeah, they're both.
and you're saying you're not going to go to the ZBA for further development
On the smaller.
On the smaller lot.
Is that what the owners are agreeing
That's
to?
the concept, subject to the exact language. That's
Okay.
what the board asked, and Mr. Arnoff did confirm today that his client's willing to consider that, subject to the exact language your counsel and our counsel, Mr. Arnoff, can come up with.
Okay.
Because it is pretty, the Donahue lot, the floor area requirement, the lot coverage fully complies. There is room to expand lot coverage-wise, but floor area, it's pretty close to the maximum.
So if there's no public comment, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Thank
All
you.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
In subdivision review, the application of Margaret Fowler, 550, 560 Wickapog Road, 35 and 80 Fowler Street. There is a negative declaration has been prepared, which we need to approve. So may I have a motion to approve the negative declaration for this application?
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There is also a resolution in the file approving the subdivision based upon the approval of the negative declaration, and an affirmative vote on that motion would be to approve the subdivision.
Is it a separate motion now?
Correct.
A separate motion then to approve the subdivision as well.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving into site plan review, the Village of Southampton, 151 Windmill Lane.
Kathy, I haven't heard anything from Anton Morvine. I don't know, other than the last time we talked, you have heard nothing from him? The only thing we can do with this is continue it over. And in the meantime, I will contact Mr. Boravina. He's been requested to submit written specifics as to what his clients might desire in the way of mitigation in order to have them withdraw their objections to the application. But we've heard nothing from council as to any of those specifics, neither Nelson Pope and Voorhees or my office. So based upon that, and based upon the fact that Mr. Boravin is not here this evening, I would suggest we adjourn it for all purposes to the August 1 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Drew Schuttinger, 157 White Street.
In the file is an application approving the site plan and planting plan for the flag lot, and affirmative vote on the motion will be to approve the landscape plan.
I have a motion to approve the decision.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And 71 Hill Street, Viridian Way.
Excuse me, I'm the architect for the applicant at 157 White Street. I thought I was picking up a decision tonight, but now,
You can if you like. You can pick it up tomorrow morning if you like.
You're gonna have that one,
Okay.
Jeffrey.
because they want to file. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's for sale, they can close it.
71 Hill Street, Viridian Way.
Good evening, Linda Riley, 235 Hampton Road for the applicant. The applicant is actually the owner of an adjacent parcel, although this involves property, the subject premises, if you will, is property that's owned by the village. I explained to you all briefly at the work session that my client's proposal is to abandon a portion of Viridian Way in order to green it up, although the purpose is not, I think, for this board to focus too much on abandonment language, which is something we can work out with the trustees. But the focus I'm looking for here is that the plan that we submitted, which is not quite this one. This is
That's the existing.
that's existing. Right. I'm gonna let Dee Dee talk. I talked to you at the work session. I'm gonna let the owner talk, and also I'm gonna let Tim Rump couldn't be here tonight. He's laid up, so he has a associate who actually drew the plan, who's here to talk about the actual plan.
Linda, I have one
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
You talk about the ultimate formal language of this,
Mhm.
the mechanism, how this will handle it. Has some kind of easement been considered?
We can consider that. I mean, we can
I'm
consider that.
just wondering if that,
It's
from
all,
a municipal
the
point of
devil's in
view-
the details. It would just be a question of how long the easement would be. If she's going to fund it, frankly, if the village wants to fund it and do it,
Be all the better.
they could continue to own it.
Well,
I
I'm just
mean,
wondering if from
this
a-
is not about her owning the property.
Right,
It's
right.
about making a
Its
more
appearance, its
attractive,
appearance, right,
yeah.
right.
So, yes, we could consider an easement, but if she's going to pay to do all of this work, she's going to want, more than a couple of years.
Well, as you said, that's part of the
That's-
decision.
that
of
could be
trustees. But
part
I'm
of
just
the-
thinking from a municipal point of view, that would be a lot easier than an abandonment.
We can,
It's something to talk about.
all of that legal stuff is on the table,
Right.
okay?
Good, thank you.
Yep.
If I could just ask a question, my understanding was that you currently own the property and that the village has an easement in the event to put the road there. Is that correct? or
No. They used to own the property, or her predecessor in title. Dee Dee is
I
a
thought going
prince-
back to when you first brought it up, Linda,
Right.
it was like back in the day when they wanted to make the cut-through
Right.
road, that the owners of the property gave the village an easement.
Correct.
But
No, they
sin-
dedicated the road.
They dedicated the
It's
road.
dedicated.
Oh.
It's not an easement. It was a
Okay.
dedication. This property over here dedicated half of it, and this property on the other side dedicated the other half, gift.
Okay. So none of this can happen without the village agreeing,
Correct, correct.
and
And we've
that hasn't changed. There's been nothing from the board, from the trustees.
Well, yes, we've had many discussions with the board. We presented the plan to, in fact, we submitted a couple iterations, including the one that, you know, is in front of you now. And we've had several discussions, and they have told us what their concerns are. Some of them relate to ownership or reverting back to the village at some point if it's ever needed. Some of that has been a consideration. They've talked about a couple of things. They wanted to see that the access through to the movie theater lot in the back there stayed open. They, you know, there were things that they asked for that we've been working to accommodate. And we've just reached a point where they, one of the things they wanted was for the planning board to review it and see if it made sense from a planning point of view before they give any kind of final determination. So that's kind of where we are now. They adopted a resolution referring it to the planning board, and so we're here. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Dee Dee Gotthelf, 91 Hill Street, 71 Hill Street in Southampton, and I am the managing member of the partnership that owns 2 of these properties, and in fact had originally owned the entire 6.5-acre parcel where the road had been dedicated to the village for no consideration to create a master plan to pull this driveway, at the time unnamed road, or Unamed Road as we called it, through to Cooper's Farm, and that appears to have been abandoned and probably will not happen. So again, I just wanted to show you existing conditions, and then we'll show you Dana Hepler's plan. It speaks for itself. This is not about more development. It's not about expanding the Southampton Inn. It is about taking a 49-and-a-half-year-old site plan that was created as a motel drive-up kind of a site plan and trying to create it more gardens, get rid of impervious lot coverage. I mean, the entire 2-acre site with the road in the middle is almost all pitted and marred blacktop. And I think it would be lovely to be able to create gardens with the garden club, with me, with the village, with the planning board. It doesn't matter. I just think it's time to do something a little bit greener and more in keeping with what we think Southampton Village should be for our community and for our visitors. Basically, this is the road, and then we have 2 parking lots, another parking lot, and the purple are the existing buildings. So almost all of it is, it's a lot of asphalt here. And these are some beautiful photographs of its current condition. It is not being maintained. It's really an abandoned cul-de-sac. It goes to nowhere. I was in front of the planning board about 6 years ago, and it just still has not happened. So it would be lovely to either repave it and put proper curb cuts and functional lighting, if in fact it's something the village needs, or they can make a garden, or I will pay to make it a garden. So again, this is. And what we were asking for is to maintain the first 140 feet of the entrance, Viridian Way. This is not an attempt in any way to change Viridian Way or to dishonor Moon Viridian. It's just to try to create something even more in keeping with a memory to a wonderful part of our village for so many years. So what we were suggesting was coming around through the back, and this is the property in question in the pink that we're asking to convert in some fashion. And unless you have questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to Dana because he's got the really pretty pictures. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dee Members of the board, Dana Hepler for Aries Design. As previously stated, Mr. Rumpf was unable to make it tonight, so I'm his stand-in. which explains why I don't have a jacket. Couldn't be the heat. Anyway, as Dee Dee explained, this project is really about greening up the entire area, and as you saw the existing photos, it is really a sea of asphalt. So simply, we converted most of the right-of-way to green space here, which is about 45% of the actual right-of-way. And then reconfiguring some of the parking areas, very simply, we added some more green space, so the contiguous green effect is quite substantial as you go in there. It'll be night and day compared to what you have now. So all told, at the very end, you have almost 3/4 of an acre of green. So that's a heck of a improvement for just, basically a simple redesign. So with that, there's a drop-off area here, and then the circulation comes back here, like Dee Dee said. And that's really, that in a nutshell. There's a little entrance, kind of a cul-de-sac here for the drop-off. And this is the roughly 140 feet, which is Meridian Way, that will stay in
So the
this
hatched
public ownership.
area, it looks hatched to me at the left end of Meridian Way.
This?
No. Just right
No,
there, right there, that
Right
hatched area. Is that,
Yes.
that's the drop-off area?
Right here, yes. This is it right here. This
So
little
you can
cul-de-sac.
drive in there?
Yes.
And if you wanted to go around to the right, you can just go back there?
That's
Okay.
correct, yeah. This little hatched area was just an alternate emergency vehicle access proposal, but we also ran the numbers for emergency access here.
But there's a tree right in the way.
No, that's
Oh.
right here, in
Yeah.
between the tree and the right-of-way here, 16 feet.
Ah.
So they'll take out that tree if they have to, but you'll clip the branches. Yeah, it'll fit right beside the tree, actually, so. And that's basically it in a nutshell. Questions?
So unless we think it's a bad idea, you proceed with the village trustees to work out the details.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Board of Trustees is waiting to hear if you think it works or can be recommended from a planning point of view, purely planning point of view.
Well, we want to make sure it was vetted by the fire marshal, which is part of the planning board process to go through that, but just.
We also spoke about that, sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
We also spoke about moving that one line, which looks like it splits the entrance. If you go, put your finger through the entrance, as you come around, you see that red line?
Yes.
We're talking about moving that over to the left a little bit, so the driveway would be fully able to go into that curb cut into the back parking area.
Yeah, we can talk about that. It's been pointed out that you explain it. Go ahead, because you're the one who pointed it out.
The way this entrance works now, let's put the 140 feet aside for the moment. You would come in here, make a right, go to the rest of the development as usual. The entrance, you would go around basically kind of a cul-de-sac here with a planted island in the middle.
Right.
And because of the way the circulation works, the way the 140 feet is now, in other words, it clips off some of that cul-de-sac, meaning typically that would be under your control and it would follow those standards, which it would default to pavement. So then you're asking people to come around here with this little corner piece of pavement. If you move it back,
He's
and
talking about
basically
village maintenance.
I got it.
Snow
I got
plows.
it.
it clips, the top portion of that cul-de-sac, so then that would be pavement. So then you have striping here, and then maybe some bollards to direct people around there. It might be confusing to some people who've never been there before, how to actually negotiate back here. So my thought was to maybe bring it in front of here so we could have this all green, and then it would be very clear for anybody circulating through here exactly how that pattern works. It's something to consider and discuss.
So that's really not a real line or anything, it's just kind of a jurisdiction line.
So whatever makes sense to.
So you'd still have full access to go
Yes.
to the back.
Still pavement. Improved pavement.
Well, to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I
Mm.
think it's a great idea, and you can't have, we're always losing green space, so to actually get some back would be great. So, like I said, pending approval of all the interested parties, the fire people, all that sort of stuff, I think it's a great idea.
Has it been referred to the fire marshal now? Has it been referred over to them?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, I think the
could do
first
it
meeting
this
was at
week.
the last work session, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. It hasn't been yet, okay.
That's the fire, who does it? That's the village to do it.
Kathy would do it,
Yeah,
right?
I do that.
Kathy does, all right.
I would also refer it to our traffic engineering department just to review it from a traffic circulation perspective. But, there's sort of dead ends now as it is, so I don't see that it's much of a change.
Mhm.
As long as people aren't whizzing around 71 to get to 73. You always worry about that.
Actually, just to add, one of my concerns, the way we currently have it, is people are whizzing down this cul-de-sac not knowing that it's a circle at the end. We have children who are using this dead end for skateboards and for bicycle lessons, and it does frighten me a little bit, and it's not lighted at night. So,
Well, I
if
think
there-
the other thing that's happening, when Hill Street backs up in that light to turn left onto Windmill Lane, is people start, it's so open now, it's like, oh, here's a road, I can go through
Right.
here, and people are
Right.
using it as a cut-through to get.
yes.
Yeah, and there are people that go fast down it, so, and this is a great improvement.
But if you have other suggestions, it's not cast in stone, it's green. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
So we need a
Are
motion
you
to.
taking public comment today, sir?
Yeah, we do.
Pardon me?
Are you taking public comment today, sir?
We hadn't scheduled a public meeting yet, but
Sure.
I'm happy to hear what you have to say, in that we're looking for feedback here.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I'd like to also give the board a letter.
If you would give it to the clerk.
Hi, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Rob Viridian. Rob Viridian, Moon Viridian's son, for who the street was named, in honor of his, 50-plus years of community public service, most of which was on this planning board, including as its chair. And I'm here not only as a member of the Viridian family, but as a village resident, with a vested interest in not only beautification of the village, but with sound planning practices. I understand, previously and also tonight, that the plan is to abandon a large part of this street, which would also, in effect, eliminate the cul-de-sac, and also the potential connection to Cooper's Farm Road. It mentioned this plan is abandoned, but as you know, village planning is generational, and things that weren't appropriate now could come into play, in the future. And so we oppose the applicant's request for abandonment of the street, based on several specific policy and planning reasons. The first was, in 1983, a condition of approval for the Cooper's Farm subdivision was that the subdivider, George Submergent, dedicate a parcel of land adjacent to the cul-de-sac for street use and to enable the connection of Cooper's Farm to Viridian Lane to provide a bypass loop from Windmill Lane to Hill Street. That wasn't an original, and this dedication is part of the Cooper's Farm subdivision final map. In addition, the circulation concept didn't originate with Cooper's Farm, but went as far back as the 1970 master plan of the village, which provided for this bypass loop from Hill Street to Windmill Lane at the Nugent Street entrance. So, when you look at this, I applaud some of the efforts to make the property more attractive. But, stepping back, planning decisions like this, if made wrong, impact generations. And it shouldn't be based on the aesthetic needs of a single property owner in abandoning a street.
If I could just interject, I'm sorry to interrupt, but really, the issue of whether the road would get cut through exist or not is the trustees' issue, it's not the planning board's issue. So
Sure.
this whole me saying, and the board saying this is great, is based on the assumption that the trustees have given up the idea of ever connecting. Now, if they haven't, which is gonna be up to the trustees to decide, not us.
Right.
Then we're, it's a whole different question.
Sure.
I agree with you there.
But this is about planning also, sir. And, I suggest, once you give up these streets, towns could look very different, circulation patterns 10, 15 years from now, especially with an upgraded sewage system plan, and that should be taken into account. And once you give back this street, whether it's an abandonment or an easement, it's very hard to get back. It's very costly. Right now, the village owns this street and a dedication of land to create a long-term flexibility in planning of that area, and I don't believe it should be given up. Ms. Godhealth mentioned that some alternatives would be to pave the street and beautify the area. I think those alternatives should respectfully be reviewed as an alternative to just getting rid of the street and create a win-win where the area is made nicer as well as the street maintained for future planning. And I have a submission that I'd like to be made part of the record, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your point of view.
My suggested thought to the applicant was that an easement might be preferable over an abandonment, because an easement would mean that the village would retain the title to the street.
Sure.
And allow the applicant to make these improvements over for a minimum period of time, which I'm presuming is going to be 20 or 30 years. Does that change your position any if the title was not given up by the village, but if the village granted an easement?
I think it's a slightly better, but I also think when those things get momentum, things are forgotten about, and it still will be a costly alternative to the village. And I do recommend that the village explore with the applicant other alternatives, like having a cul-de-sac that's attractive from the street, maybe go around while maintaining the street, paving the street. I understand Ms. Godhealth's concern about the aesthetics. There could be a lot of alternatives versus elimination of the street, including paving, creating brick borders, beautiful landscaping, that don't necessarily require the town to give up its rights for the future planning. And that would just be my view, that there are alternatives that should be explored. And Ms. Godhealth herself even suggested being open to that, as I heard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Kathy, I think the next step would be for NPV to do your usual analysis, and when that's been completed, we can schedule a public hearing. So at this point, a motion to adjourn would be appropriate, I think.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's it for tonight's agenda. I would like to approve the minutes as far along as we can. We have May 3rd, May 31st work session, June 6th regular session, and June 27th work session. Has everybody read those, and does anybody have any corrections or changes to be made?
Should we go one at a time? Are you guys good on May 3rd and May 31st?
What?
27th's not there.
No.
So we have May
May 3rd and May
3rd,
31st.
May 31st.
Is this the? Right, they do that. Okay, but we're not, but the 27th.
We're not doing the 27th.
Just making a motion to approve the minutes of May 3rd, 2016 and May 31st, 2016.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The next meeting of this board will be a work session on July 25th at 5 p.m. And then the next public meeting will be August 1st, 2016 at 5:30 PM. If there's nothing else to do, could I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.